In the quiet villages of northern Mozambique, far from the political chambers of Pretoria, far from the bright lights of Johannesburg, a name echoes. A name that divides nations, a name that energizes crowds, a name that stirs both hope and controversy. That name is Julius Malema. But what does his presence mean here, in rural Mozambique, where daily survival matters more than speeches? How far does his influence truly reach? Is it ideology? Is it symbolism? Or is it simply the power of a voice crossing borders? Today, we travel deep into the heart of Mozambique to find out. Mozambique, a nation shaped by colonial history, liberation struggles, and economic challenges, shares more than just geography with South Africa. It shares history, migration, culture, and political echoes. For decades, South Africa's political shifts have rippled across its borders. And at the center of modern political disruption in South Africa stands Julius Malema, leader of the Economic Freedom Fighters, commonly known as the EFF. Known for his fiery speeches, radical land reform stance, and bold Pan-African messaging, Malema's rhetoric travels quickly, especially in regions where economic inequality remains deeply rooted. But what happens when that rhetoric reaches rural Mozambique? Does it inspire? Does it alarm? Or does it barely register? This documentary is not about headlines. It is about impact on the ground.
To understand Malema's symbolic presence here, we must first understand Mozambique's political foundation. After independence from Portugal in 1975, Mozambique was led by the Frelimo, a liberation movement turned ruling party. Its ideology was rooted in socialism and anti-colonial struggle. For many rural Mozambicans, political identity is still connected to liberation narratives. Now consider Malema's messaging: land redistribution, economic justice, African sovereignty. These themes resonate with post-colonial memory.
The language connects, but connection is not the same as influence. South Africa is a lifeline for many Mozambicans. Thousands cross the border annually for work, particularly in mining, agriculture, and domestic labor. In the villages we visited, nearly every family had a relative working in South Africa. Through them, South African politics travels back home. Smartphones have erased borders. Speeches delivered in Johannesburg are watched hours later in Mozambican villages. But does watching mean believing? Or does it simply mean observing? Among rural youth, unemployment is high. Economic opportunity is scarce. Land ownership remains complex. Malema's bold stance on land redistribution resonates emotionally with some. Admiration does not automatically translate into adoption. Mozambique has its own economic struggles, its own leadership structures, its own realities. For many young people here, Malema is a personality, not a political guide. Rural Mozambique faces daily challenges: limited infrastructure, inconsistent electricity, limited healthcare access, vulnerable agricultural systems. When survival is the priority, external political rhetoric often feels distant. In these communities, influence is measured not in ideology, but in tangible change. And so far, Malema's presence here remains symbolic rather than structural.
Interestingly, regional radio rarely discusses South African opposition politics, but social media does. Clips of Julius Malema trend not because of policy papers, but because of delivery style. Charisma travels faster than policy.
The question becomes, is this cultural influence or political expansion? Experts suggest it is more about Pan-African symbolism than cross-border mobilization. According to regional political analysts, Malema's presence in Mozambique is indirect. The economic freedom fighters remains a South African political force. In Mozambique, its footprint is digital, not institutional.
In many ways, Malema represents a broader conversation across Africa about land, youth power, and economic justice. But in rural Mozambique, the daily fight is immediate: food security, education, infrastructure. Political symbolism from abroad cannot replace local governance, yet it can inspire dialogue. And perhaps that is the real presence, not political control, but psychological influence.
So what is Malema's presence in rural Mozambique? It is not a movement. It is not an organized force. It is not a structural intervention. It is a conversation, a digital echo of South Africa's political energy, landing softly in villages shaped by their own history. In a world where speeches travel faster than borders, influence is no longer limited by geography. But impact? Impact still depends on reality. And in rural Mozambique, reality speaks louder than rhetoric. If you value deep, on-the-ground political documentaries that explore real impact beyond headlines, subscribe to the channel. Comment below. Do you believe cross-border political influence is growing stronger in Africa? Or do local realities always shape the final outcome? This has been Malema's Presence, a rural Mozambique study.